Hello, my name is David Clements. I'm a business law professor here at New Mexico State University. The views that I'm going to express are mine and mine alone. This video is directed to President John Floros, as well as my colleagues here at the university, and whatever wider audience this video reaches. I don't like making these types of videos. I like my privacy. I don't like confrontation, but I feel compelled to respond to an email that was sent yesterday by the president of the university because I feel like someone needs to speak up for a large segment of the university that is silent, where their speech has been chilled. And I hope to give you an idea of what a Trump voter might look like. Because right now, I'm seeing all kinds of things being sent through social media, online, that has equated Trump voters as traitors, as treasonous scum, as racist. 75 million people, at least, voted for President Trump. And the language that's there. Even now, I saw one of our state reps or state senators in the state call for those that voted for Trump to be branded with an S, to be a seditionist. The scarlet letter coming back to rule. And then I get this email. If you haven't guessed it yet, I voted for President Trump. I have no fear in sharing that with you all. In fact, I don't care what happens as a result of me posting this video. I simply have no fear. And I'll tell you why. But before I do that, and before I tell you how I came to vote for President Trump and why I'm so sickened by emails like this, I'm going to read the email that I received from John Floros, and then I'll discuss it as thoroughly as I can manage. Dear colleagues, Wednesday was a scary and difficult day. The heart of our democratic institutions, in the building that symbolizes freedom and democratic ideals around the world, was brutally attacked by an angry mob incited by a group of demagogues claiming to represent true American values. It was deeply painful to watch. Let me stop right there. Our cities were on fire this year. Kenosha, Wisconsin was on fire. Parts of Minneapolis were burned to the ground. Courthouses were set on fire. Police precincts were destroyed. I never got an email from the president condemning mob violence that was perpetrated by Antifa or Black Lives Matter. But we get this now. Hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. And we are told time and time again that riots are the voice of the unheard. Quoting Martin Luther King Jr. But what happened this past Wednesday is not being categorized as a riot with an angry people that have every right to be angry. It's being called insurrection. They're being called an angry mob. Demagogues. So first of all, I'm offended that this is the email that you're going to send to faculty when you've been largely silent as cities have burned. People have lost their businesses, homes. And I find it shocking because I was in law enforcement. As a deputy district attorney, I oversaw 6 law enforcement agencies. I received calls at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to help law enforcement do their job when they were uncertain. I had to counsel them to protect them on the stand because they were doing righteous work. And they've been demonized. The entire criminal justice system has been demonized. It has now been adopted as a racist institution. So a little upsetting when something that you've spent the better part of a decade involved in to take rapists and murderers off the streets, to protect victims, to console them, is minimized by your silence when that's the stuff that happened. Entire city blocks turned into zones for Antifa and BLM. No email about our democratic norms. So that's my first point. Your next paragraph. It was particularly shocking for me as it brought back painful memories. More than 50 years ago in my homeland of Greece, a small group of right-wing forces dismantled democracy and installed a military junta in just a few hours. The junta trampled civil liberties, imprisoned political opponents, instigated chaos and anarchy, and ruled by fear for several years before the democratic processes and ideals were restored. First, Mr. Floros, I don't know you. You may very well be a good man, and I don't want to assign anything your way that is not fair. And if you've got an experience that I can learn from, I would love to learn more from you. But I want to talk about one thing that's in this paragraph dealing with the trampling of civil liberties. Are you aware of what's going on right now with big tech? Millions and millions of conservative voices are being canceled and removed from social media platforms, being removed from Twitter. We are seeing fact suppression far and wide. So where's the discussion about the trampling of civil liberties right now, the most crucial one, which is our ability to speak and communicate? There's none. Next paragraph reads, however, on Wednesday, our democratic institutions held strong, and by the end of the day, both houses of Congress returned to the Capitol building to do the people's business. Well, let me stop you there. The people's business on Wednesday was to certify votes to ensure that there was a proper transition to the next president. However, in 7 of those states, there were dueling electors, and the people's business allowed for the American people to hear evidence of voter fraud. When these members of Congress returned, they did not deal with the massive black cloud hanging over the election in November. They did nothing of the sort. They used the riot as grounds to move forward and push their paper, because there were constitutional arguments both ways. I know the constitutional arguments backwards, forward, sideways on this being a states' rights issue. Totally respect that position. But the idea, when you look at the electors clause, is that you can object and you can investigate when certain votes are not regularly given. And in many states, it's clear that they weren't. Georgia, case in point. And for those of you that watch this video think that there is no evidence, you don't know what you're talking about. I've reviewed hours upon hours of public hearings. I've read almost all of the lawsuits that are out there. Most of them were dismissed on legal process grounds, raising standing. And the general argument that we've heard was that because this was a general harm, if you want to believe there was fraud, that you have no standing because your harm has to be particular. And that's more or less the reason why these judges haven't touched these cases. It's not because there isn't evidence. There is evidence. In fact, I'm in possession of 574 pages of sworn affidavits, forensic reports, all of which would make its way into a court of law under the rules of evidence in a federal or state court. The fact that evidence has not been heard here by these courts, do not conflate that with this idea that there is no evidence. The courts have done what they always do. When you have political matters, they want them to be decided politically, not in a courtroom, but through the elections, through the state legislatures. And what we have are a bunch of cowards. We have judges that are cowards. We have politicians that are cowards. And that's the reality. But if any of you want to actually look at the evidence, sworn affidavits where people face 10, 15 years of prison time if they commit perjury, and statistical analysis that just fly in the face of this idea that there was no fraud in this election. I've put forensic experts on the stand. I understand the forensics of this, not as an expert, but as someone who has listened to experts, put their testimony on the stand when we let impartial jurors make a decision. And right now that information has been widely suppressed. Now let me continue with this email. And I want you to pay attention to this word that's used. Collectively, we were relieved. But we can't forget how disturbingly easy it is to slide from a democracy into a dictatorship. Notice how the word republic is never used by President Floros. Democracies thrive when they act in accord with the collective will of the people. But when the people lose their ability or will to work towards consensus, democracy is weakened. Democracy demands dialogue. I agree with that. It demands that we work towards a consensus, depends on what the consensus is, in which everybody sacrifices something for a greater collective good. That's 3 times. Reaching this compromise requires respectful dialogue among people with different opinions. I also agree with that. But right now, if you've got a different opinion and you're on any of the media platforms, any of the technical platforms, you are being silenced. The Parler app has been removed from the app stores of both Google and Apple. And other ones are coming down by the minute. President Flores continues, the resulting compromise is not a weakness, it is the foundational strength of a government of the people. Well, the people weren't heard this past Wednesday. They were silenced once again. And that's why you had folks show up in the first place, because they felt like they were silenced in their own respective states and they wanted to be heard. As a nation, we are facing serious challenges ahead. The rejection of the mob rule on Wednesday is a hopeful sign that our democratic institutions remain strong and committed to solving our problems, but those institutions are us, and only through the unwavering commitment of each of us as individuals and collectively can democratic institutions survive. I would like to hear your thoughts. Please send them. So I'm sharing with you my thoughts. So right now we have a quick take from the president that is regurgitating what I've seen in the media. Effectively a bunch of Trump supporters being an angry mob brutally attacking the Capitol building and those inside. One of the reasons why I'm speaking up to restate and reframe is that President Flores, you've reached a conclusion prematurely, way too quickly. And having been involved in major criminal investigations, you don't have a definitive answer in 3 hours, let alone 24 hours. And you don't know enough about this to make the claims that you're making. Was it Trump supporters? I don't know. Perhaps some got mixed in, but with who? Well, let's listen to someone here.
All right, guys, so this video is going to be a little bit different than the other ones. I just got back from storming the Capitol. We stormed it. It was successful. We stormed the fucking Capitol. And for all you bitches on Facebook going crazy right now talking about it was Antifa fucking being infiltrating and that it wasn't us, it was us. We proudly took back our Capitol. I'm only here in my hotel room to get some gear on. I'm going back, baby. They brought the National Guard out for us and shit. We had the fucking cops running. They ran from...
So what do you make of this? I don't have any grand conspiracy theories, but the tone and tenor of your letter tends to assign guilt to a president that's trying to create a dictatorship, and the blame is implicitly directed towards his supporters. We just heard from a man who's clearly not his supporter, who was there. His words are his own. He made his statement. There are other videos like this throughout the internet. You have to find them because they're being suppressed and pulled down real time. But the reality is this is out there. We're only a few days out from Wednesday, and this does not fit into your narrative in that email. Here's another one. Notice here, these are police. These are barriers. Look what happens.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just reached the Capitol again.
Those are police not being shoved aside. Those are police removing barriers. And you have a gentleman waving in these protesters, some of which, admittedly, are Antifa members, some of which are likely misguided Trump supporters thinking they can go inside the Capitol. It's likely a combination of both because the facts bear that out.
A guard, he's a policeman, watch. Did you see that? He was waving them in. All right, we'll play it again. Watch this. He's waving them in. Watch.
One marked state trooper vehicle, 2 black SUVs. There's 3 state vehicles, state trooper vehicles, escorted 4 Antifa shuttle buses right here front and center. There was actually 5 vehicles total. There was 3 up front, 2 in the back. They escorted right here, waited for them to get off their buses, and they had the state troopers unloaded and took their positions. Watch. There's that guy. He had his lights on. They were coming, and then there's the ones up front too. They escorted, and each one of those buses are labeled. They're all paid charter buses.
Look at that, bro.
All right, I want to show you this clip, and I don't know if you've seen this either, Lance. This was a new one that I found today. This is from inside the Capitol, just 30 seconds. It's where the protesters broke through. Now watch how it was handled. All right, now I want to go back, and guys, if you can just freeze frame Jason on that piece where they walk, because it's real easy to miss if you weren't watching it, where when they first broke through that door, which to say broke through doesn't really count, how silly that whole was, really the whole resistance was. But look what happened, look what came through when they came through the door. Now watch, I'll talk over it. You can go ahead and play it, just kind of scroll through it. And he's coming in, they're coming up. Now watch what comes over. Whoops, there he is, stop. A photographer is conveniently poised to catch all the action. That's amazing. A protester that comes with his own photographer, Lance, that we're actually seeing an amazing...
All right, so I don't have any grand explanations of what we just watched, but a video shows police removing barriers. That's not Trump supporters, that's the police. The other video shows police waving in the quote-unquote rioters. Next video shows protesters waiting on the officer's prompt, and he stops several times while he's getting photographed. I don't know what it means in a large scale, but it happened because we just watched what happened. Occam's razor suggests that the simplest explanation is generally the most accurate one. The cops moved those barriers because they meant to. They were directed to do so. That cop was able to stop those that rioting mob with a gesture of his hand because he had the authority to do so. Are you watching this? There's more.
Trump supporters have largely been blamed for the violence against police officers and property, but video footage appears to show a different story. This video taken by NTD's on-the-ground reporters shows Trump supporters trying to stop the people smashing windows of the Capitol building and calling them Antifa. You can hear them saying, "Anyone who does this is not with us." It appears other protesters grab his leg and pull him down to stop him from breaking the window. Other videos show pro-Trump protesters booing those breaking in and calling them Antifa. This video appears to show them trying to stop the people smashing windows and shoving them towards the police. We do know that many genuine Trump supporters did make it inside the barricades of the Capitol building. A number of them say they didn't use violence to get in, but were let in. In this video, police appear to open the barricades.
I had 3 more videos that I had viewed. They've been taken down, just like these. The one that I can't locate anymore because Facebook suppressed it were quote-unquote protesters walking down a hallway, getting nods from police as they were waved in. Now, let me tell you something as someone who worked in law enforcement. President Trump doesn't have control over Capitol Police. That's a function of the Capitol itself and the mayor. Trump doesn't direct the police. So to claim that he's responsible for what happened when individuals that do not operate under his jurisdiction let these individuals in, again, many of which that admitted themselves to be part of Antifa. There was another gentleman who made a confession. I can't get that video anymore. I have to go to all kinds of unsafe places on the internet to find this stuff because they're getting flagged and brought down. The veracity of which you can figure out on your own. But this is out there. And your faculty members are seeing it. Your lay workers are seeing it. Hopefully they're seeing it now. And when we get something like what you sent, it is not the truth. It's just simply not the truth. It's a narrative. Again, I'm not making any claims of what this all means, who's doing what, who directed what. I don't know. I just know what my eyes saw in many, many videos. I know what my eyes have seen when I watch witness testimony over election irregularities. People that have nothing to gain, having their lives ruined by the press for speaking up about what they saw. And there is an overriding narrative that these people are crazy. Maybe they are. But I should be allowed to hear what they have to say. And these folks are being suppressed, and they're not being given access to the courts. And as someone who has been in the court system, I'm ashamed of the judiciary. I'm ashamed of my profession. So why am I speaking up now? At great risk to my job security. I ran for office. And I know that the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because it will be brought up. The fact that I'm speaking an unpopular truth. I spoke up because some of our faculty members were equating Trump supporters to being far-right racist. 75 million far-right racists. And I thought, wow, that's a unifying message. To be told that we are all lumped together. And right now, once again, the rhetoric has been inflammatory to the point where someone has to speak up for these folks. I say this as someone who has not been registered with the Republican Party for many, many years. I've been a third party guy for a while. So I've got no dog in this fight from a Republican standpoint. But I did run for office as a Republican many, many years ago because I saw what I thought were abuses with mass surveillance. I called Edward Snowden a hero when it was very, very unpopular to do so, and I still maintain that he's a hero. I ran for office on things that I thought were important, to tell people the truth, to tell them about their government. And as one of my faculty members pointed out, yes, I was a failed candidate. I lost the election, but I didn't lose my integrity. In fact, I fought against bullies in that election. I was 48 votes shy from becoming the presumptive nominee for a U.S. Senate race, and I would have won, but I was hacked. I was hacked by my opponent's campaign manager, and I called him out on it. And then I was sued for defamation. And I stood up to a legal team by myself, represented myself, and had that case dismissed with prejudice. And to this day, I can tell everyone out there that I was hacked because it was true. So I don't have a tolerance for bullies. I wasn't going to be bullied by a political party. I wasn't going to be bullied by a candidate. When I brought up surveillance issues as a prosecutor, I had law enforcement that came into my office and tried to bully me. I wasn't silenced then. All this to say, I'm not afraid to speak my mind when it's appropriate. I lost the race. Not bitter about it. I didn't want to be a politician. I wanted to serve and be a servant to the people. And I went back to being a prosecutor. And I did my job and I did it well. And then I had the opportunity to get a dream job, and that's to work here. I'm proud to say that none of my students would know what my political affiliation is because I taught them facts. I taught them how to critically think. I taught them about business law, which is my job. Many professors here think it's their job to indoctrinate people into their political ideology. I don't do that. You can look at all of my student evaluations. You will not find anything even remotely political in there. But there are political attacks happening in this university, and they're commonplace. And so there's one gentleman here, I will not name him, equating 75 million Trump voters to being far-right racist. I've got a problem with that. And I spoke up on Faculty Talk. And when I did, it was search and destroy. There was a handful of faculty members that made it their immediate duty to do as much research about me, to provide a caricature about me, and attempt to destroy my name because I committed the sin of being a Republican that ran for office. I feel ashamed to even tell people that I'm not a Republican because there's nothing wrong with it. But in this climate, to be a Trump voter, to be a Republican, it's treated like it's a sin. And this kind of narrative and these emails cement that narrative. It cements this position of shut up if you didn't vote for our guy. Now, it goes without saying, I need to tell you this. I was a never Trumper. I had legitimate concerns about his character. I wrote op-eds about his character. I didn't vote for him. So this is your messenger, someone who didn't vote for him. And then for 4 years, I saw the media absolutely expose itself as having no credibility, extreme bias, suppressing everything about this man, who ended up being a pretty good Republican president on policies. Not perfect. He stood up against media and big tech. It exists. So over 4 years, I got to see this man who I would have never voted for, and I was conflicted about up and until the election. I was looking for anyone else besides Biden and Trump. But I cast a vote for Trump. And I did so without reservation. I could not go into the county clerk's office fast enough and fill out that bubble, given what I've seen politically at the university and elsewhere. I'm here. I'm not a racist. My mother's Hawaiian. My grandmother worked at the Dole Pineapple Factory. Her mother lived when the Kingdom of Hawaii was turned over to the United States at the end of a gun. Racism disgusts me. I was actually on your anti-racism, anti-discrimination task force this past summer, trying to learn, trying to figure out how to be of service. And you know what I heard when I was in my meetings? A particular faculty member that said over and over again, we have to make sure that a white male doesn't get a certain position. Said over and over again. I could not believe what I was hearing, that someone was going to be disqualified by two things that the person couldn't control: his skin color and his gender. That was the position of this committee. It was reverse racism, and I sat and just watched with dismay. That's what's going on here. Let me end this video this way. There is anxiety with many of your faculty. They're just afraid to share it. When I was called out on Faculty Talk and I stood up for myself, I had multiple folks reach out to me expressing that this is the way that they feel. You, Mr. President, speak for all of us. But when you omit riots, cities burning all year, and then you make it a point to bring it up now, that's problematic. Your silence speaks volumes. I don't know what's going to happen to me, and I'm fine with that because I'm going to tell the truth the way that I see it. I hope that you will send another email out stating that you have rushed to judgment For my faculty colleagues out there that are continuing to call out Trump supporters, to demonize them, I hope that you can treat them and myself with civility. You will not find an email on Faculty Talk where I have attacked someone for being a Democrat, for being a Biden supporter, and I like to think I've got great relationships with my colleagues here. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 11 days, but I pray for civility. I pray for people to have an open mind, to hear the viewpoints of others. I pray that this institution would safeguard free speech and that I would not be retaliated against and punished for expressing what I'm expressing. But I don't accept this narrative. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the days to come. I think we're all going to be shocked and amazed at what's going to transpire over the next week. Good night.